Have you seen anything like this, what we're observing?
Well, Kieran, in a way, I guess the year 2000 was not entirely dissimilar. Al Gore was declared the winner, and I wrote what was going to be a front page piece about that. And then George Bush was declared a winner, so we ditched that piece, and I wrote a front page piece about that. And then we ditched that result, and it was called as too close to call, and it went down to 500 votes in Florida. But the most amazing thing about this election really has been Trump's incredible surge at the end. I mean, Nate Silver at FiveThirtyEight had him losing Michigan by 8% immediately prior to the election. Now, it seems he's lost Michigan, but it will be by, 0.01% or 0.1% or something. He was supposed to lose the popular vote by 8%. He was supposed to lose in Florida. So that's been striking. The other striking thing is how the people who voted on the day voted for Trump and the people who voted by mail voted for Biden, which is why, amazingly, Trump is set to lose a couple of the states that he had such a big lead in.
So, yeah, it is down to only a handful of states. What's your read on it now that Biden just gets there? Because Pennsylvania looks like it's tracking quite well for him in the context of exactly what you just said there, the early lead, or the red mirage as it's been described, chipped away by those earlier mail-in votes.
Yeah, so the way it's all fallen so far, assuming he hangs on to Nevada and Arizona, and they're not quite finished yet, and it's very unlikely, but it's not inconceivable that Trump could take one of those states back. Assuming he hangs on to those states, then Biden could just get there even without Pennsylvania, provided he wins Michigan and Wisconsin. If he is able to take either Georgia or North Carolina, that would also put him over the top. And Trump looks to be just about safe in North Carolina, but Georgia is on a knife edge with the post-in votes again going against Trump. At one point, Trump had a lead of 700,000 in Pennsylvania. And in any normal election, you would say you cannot pull back a lead of 700,000 because even if it's a pro-Democrat district or something, they're not going to go 10-1 in one direction. But it does seem like the postal votes have been going 8-2 in favour of Biden. So that's why I think we were a bit misled by the size of the Trump lead on election night. Now, the Trump forces are alleging shenanigans with vote counts overnight. I think that's reasonably unlikely and will be very hard to prove, although there is a history of such shenanigans in America, and I would hope that postal voting, which was necessary this time because of COVID, you would hope that it doesn't become standard because it is a very ramshackle and easily manipulated way to vote.
You haven't always been a big fan of Trump's style. What did you make of that speech at the White House, and do you see a scenario where some Republicans might have to tap him on the shoulder if these numbers fall definitively towards Biden, but he's still kicking up a stink?
So Trump is such a paradox, Kieran. You're right to say I find his style despicable. But I have to accept in a way that only someone with his genius for generating free media could probably have got as close as he did. A polite Mitt Romney or John McCain would never have generated the amount of free media and social media that he did. And the Democrats massively outspent the Republicans. Biden had 3 times as much money as Trump in the last phase of the campaign. Biden was hundreds of millions of dollars richer than Trump. The richest people, here's a paradox, the richest people in America donated overwhelmingly to Biden, who is supposed to be the champion of the downtrodden, and the poorest people in America voted overwhelmingly to Trump. Trump outraised Biden by more than $50 million amongst Americans who earn less than the average income. So Trump's bizarre style has its uses. will anyone have to tap him on the shoulder? I don't know. I mean, there's going to be a lot of bombast. I thought that Trump's speech last night, by Trump's standards, was, well within the normal standard deviations. I think it's extremely sinister that social media is censoring Trump, Twitter and Facebook, and censoring Trump supporters. That is an extremely sinister development out of this election. It's very, very undemocratic. But there are no options for Trump if he loses the election. I mean, I think people are a bit hysterical about thinking that America is an authoritarian state or something. No institution in America is going to support Trump to defy the Electoral College. I mean, if he refuses to leave the White House, presumably the bailiff or the local Washington police will come along and say, time to clear out. He's not going to be able to deploy the military. The military aren't going to take unconstitutional orders from him. The judiciary, the Supreme Court, including the justices he appointed, have already ruled against him on 2 critical vote counting measures. So I don't think, and of course, Trump is a master of bluff. He's not going to do anything ultimately which puts himself in legal jeopardy or whatever. But naturally, it's going to be, this is Trump. It's going to be a lot of drama.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's never not. Something we've discussed at length on many occasions, but he's really wrong-footed a lot of, not just world leaders, but I'd say, foreign policy experts and so on with his approach, and made a lot of ground in areas where people said, no chance, he won't do that. Yes, yeah, well, he's achieved peace deals with Israel, and the Kim Jong-un summit didn't really come up with much in the end, but still, that was something where defied the experts. He's made ground in that space where many suggested he was talking rubbish.
Look, you couldn't be more right, Kieran, and that's why I had to revise my own views about Trump. As you might remember, 4 years ago on this network and in print, I was a never Trumper and thought he was absolutely unfit to be president. But you've got to acknowledge reality. He has made a lot of progress, and he bequeaths America, in my opinion, this is very contrarian view on my part. He bequeaths Biden and America in a stronger position. I mean, a final reflection on the election, the Democrats didn't take the Senate. The Republicans won seats in the House of Representatives, which is almost unheard of when you lose the presidency. And the Republicans won governorships. They won at least one governorship and didn't lose any governorships. So he's wildly outperformed expectations for his party. Yeah. But internationally, you're quite right, he's got 3 peace treaties between Israel and its Arab neighbours. Who would ever have thought that was possible? After moving the US embassy to Jerusalem, he's established a lot of leverage for Biden. China now wants him to take off the tariffs. Iran wants him to take off the sanctions. The Mexicans are cautious about the way they interact in the border. The Palestinians want him to resume aid. Well, Biden, if he's going to do all these things, he should ask for a price first. I mean, he should take on board a little bit of Trump's transactionalism. And if he does all those things in order to reverse Trump, he should get something for the United States in exchange. So I think Trump is untutored in foreign affairs, but he does understand the crude nature of power relationships, and he has been surprisingly effective. There are some areas where he's been ineffective. As you say, the Kim Jong-un stuff in the end yielded nothing, but he has been surprisingly effective in a number of areas.
Finally, today, interestingly, Greg, that one of the few messages Joe Biden sent, this was on social media, but it related to foreign policy and said that within a couple of months, a Biden administration will sign back up to the Paris Agreement. I guess, an early signpost of one of his priorities. And, Boris Johnson had a similar message to the Prime Minister last week. This is an interesting scenario where our 2 closest allies are pushing in that direction. Does this put pressure on Scott Morrison and Maurice Payne to have to navigate that?
Yes, I think climate change will be a serious matter of contention between Australia and the United States. I think we'll have more trouble with Biden than we ever had with Trump. We were Trump's best friend, and Trump did everything we wanted bilaterally and never put us under any pressure on any multilateral issue. Biden is going to make a religion of climate change. Biden, however, if he still really is a devout Catholic, should go down on his knees and thank God that he didn't win the Senate, because this means now that he's not going to do anything radical about climate change or about anything else, because nothing radical will get past the Republican Senate. So remember, Obama was going to stop the oceans from rising and cool the planet and all the rest of it. Nothing happened because he couldn't get any carbon tax legislation through the Congress. Well, that's going to be even more so the case with Biden. There are a few things Biden can do by presidential decree, but it's going to be quite limited. What he can do, though, is jawbone. So you remember Barack Obama, really in a most unscrupulous and improper way to treat an ally, sandbagged Tony Abbott at the Brisbane G20 by giving a speech on climate change which lambasted the Abbott government. And he didn't tell Abbott in advance. So this is a shocking way to treat an ally. We were much worse treated by Obama than we were ever treated by Trump. Now, the people who were responsible for that outrage of a speech, who were around Obama then, are around Biden now, and they will love the prospect of embarrassing a leader like Morrison. But having said all that, being attacked by Joe Biden is like being savaged by a dead sheep. So I think it's going to be a matter of contention, but I don't think it's going to, if that's the worst problem Scott Morrison faces in his life, I think he'll be okay.